Today we're going to learn how to do cables, and they're much easier than you probably think they're going to be. I was actually kind of disappointed when I learned how to do them because I thought it was going to be some huge thing to take on and to learn, but they're actually very simple. So that's kind of the good news and the bad news. So let's get started. If we want to change the camera to the view from my hands. 1 second. Okay, so a little bit about cables. Cables are created when we knit the stitches out of order. So we change the order that the stitches are on the needle. And we do that by taking them off of the needle and putting them on one of these type of cable needles. And it just holds the stitches just for a few seconds until we're ready to use them. I'm going to show you how to do that. If you don't have one of these type of cable needles, that's fine. You can use a double pointed needle and that'll work just as well. And if you don't have anything like that, you probably have something like a chopstick or maybe a pencil or something that you can use on a temporary basis until you get something. So you don't really need to get anything too special to start. So I don't know if you guys all have your handout yet, but I have mine here. So you can do cables, you can do as many stitches as you want to in the cable. You can cross one stitch over one stitch and have a cable that's small, or as many as you want. So there's no real rules about that. You can also have cables that cross over that are asymmetrical. So you can get really creative with them. And the thing that you're going to have to remember when you're following a pattern is, I'm going to show it to you right here how it's written out. Right here where it says these are written as 3/3 LC and 3/3 RC. So that is going to tell you a little bit about the information that your cable is going to be doing in your pattern. Where it says 3/3, that means that you're going to be crossing 3 stitches over 3 stitches. So it's a 3/3 cable. And that could be 1/1, 2/2, 6/6. It could be like 5/4. It could be almost any combination. And LC means that it leans to the left, and RC means that it leans to the right. And there's a little memory crutch to help you remember. If you want it to lean to the right, you can say, I'll be right back. And that means you'll hold the cable needle in the back of your work. And we'll practice that right now. I'm going to show you. So for the practice exercise, it has you cast on 18 stitches, work one row, and then the second row is where we're going to have our cables. So let me go ahead and start my second row. So what happens is I'm going to purl 2, and then you always do want to double check your pattern to make sure you're doing it just the way it's written out. So, I'm on row 3, I'm sorry. So you're going to purl 2, and then I'm going to do 3/3 RC. So I'm going to cross 3 stitches over 3 stitches with a right leaning cable. So here's where the excitement happens. So you take your cable needle. Now the thing about the cable needle is you want it to be smaller than the needles you're knitting with, because it is going to be on the stitches, and if it's bigger than the needles that you're knitting with, it will stretch out your stitches and make them shaped a little different. You don't have to have one this big. You could use a smaller one, but you definitely don't want the cable needle to be bigger. So like if I were knitting with like size 6 needles, I would not be able to use this one. So I just transferred 3 stitches to my cable needle. And because I want to hold this in the back, it's going to lean to the right. And that's what's going to create the shape of the cable. And that was where the memory crutch falls in. I'll be right back, meaning if you hold it in the back, then it's going to lean to the right. And then I'm going to knit my 3 stitches just like normal, and my other stitches are just waiting patiently. Okay, now I have to knit these stitches off of this back onto my needle, and that's what's going to create the cross, because I'm changing the order that these stitches were originally in. A couple of things at this point. You want to make sure that you're looking at knit stitches when you're knitting here. It's really easy sometimes to twist them or to turn it the wrong way. So just take 1 second and make sure you're looking at the proper side of it. You don't have it twisted. Then get your yarn positioned right. You just do normal knitting. I'm just going to knit 3 stitches right off of my cable needle. And my cable cross is finished. So it's 100%, that one's finished. And then the next thing the pattern is telling me is to purl 2 and then 3/3 LC. So I'm going to show you what the difference in that will be. So I'm going to purl 2, and just like normal purls, nothing special for that. And then 3/3 LC. So I'm going to put 3, let's use a different one. Use this one. I'm going to put 3 stitches on my cable needle, and this one's shaped a little different. And because this one's going to be a left leaning, it's telling us it's LC, which means left leaning. We're going to hold that in the front, and that is going to change the direction in which the cable is turning. And if you want it to turn to the left, you can say you left the front door open. So left, you're going to bring it to the front. So left the front door open. And then position your yarn to do whatever stitches are next. I'm going to knit 3. And then you don't want to leave these stitches behind. And that's something I've done when I'm not paying attention is, you just then keep going. And sometimes you'll forget, and then you come back and you realize, oh no, and then you have to unknit it and then redo it. But so make sure you don't leave these stitches behind by mistake. Get your yarn in the right position. I'm going to do 3 knit stitches right from my cable needle. It doesn't matter that the cable needle's smaller because they're going to be shaped by my knitting needle, the working needle. Now I'm all done with that. And then I have to do 2 purls to finish. And usually, not always, there's exceptions, but usually cables are lined on either side with purl columns, and that helps to define the cables. Now this just looks like a hot mess, right? It doesn't look like anything's good is going to come of this, but your first row always looks like this. It always looks very questionable, and then the cable will really start to fall into shape after you do the second row. So when you get to this point, don't lose heart, because you still, everything will probably be okay. And then I have one that I knitted a little further. And so you can see that when you continue with the pattern, that this is leaning this direction and this one's leaning this direction, because we held the needle in the front and in the back. So the cables are actually kind of twisting in opposite directions. So any questions so far? I know we covered a lot already, and I can start at the beginning if you want me to, or what do we want to do? So now I'm going to work the back. I'm going to work the back of this, and you work the back of it just like normal. Okay, I'm sorry, Claire, go ahead.
That's okay. I was going to interrupt for a moment. I've had some issues in the chat here. Seems like there may have been a mix-up in either the class listing for the date or the sign-up. Some people were here expecting a toe-up sock class. We are not doing that today. Apologies for the confusion. We did our toe-up sock class on November 2nd. So if you wanted to learn that, go back to michaels.com/classes and you can watch the video back then. Sorry for the confusion. We'll make sure everything is correct for upcoming classes.
Okay. Good, I'm glad it wasn't my fault. I thought, am I teaching the wrong class? That's not good. So now I'm working on the back of my cable. So this is the wrong side. And usually on the wrong side, almost always, you're just gonna be knitting your knits and purling your pearls. So nothing special or exciting is happening on the wrong side. So you're just really continuing your work. And I want to show you another. And are there any questions about anything else? Any questions? Doing good? I want to get to the right side. I know it's boring just watching
Katie
you
wants
knit.
to know, are you doing 2 purl, 3 knit, 3 knit?
Yes, that's what it is. I don't know if you all have the handout or not, but cast on 18 stitches, purl 2, knit 6, purl 2, knit 6, purl 2. And that's kind of the setup, and then we continue from there. Now I'm back on the front side of my work. And the thing about cables are you don't have to do cables on every row. And so when I first learned cables, I was expecting to have to do something on every row to make it like so exciting. But you really don't do anything. You do it only about every 3 or 4 rows. So that's the good news about cables is it's not as complicated as you think because you're not doing them every time. So now this time I'm going across my cable and I'm just knitting just like normal, not doing anything special. And then the next time I come back across, I'll be doing my cable turn. Okay, so has anyone done cables before? Is this the first go with cables or?
Looks like we've got a couple first timers here.
Okay. All right, I'll get back.
I think if you can probably demonstrate the cable row one more time.
Yeah, I'm trying
hopefully.
To get there. That's where I'm trying to get to. I thought maybe we'd have some questions while I was knitting that I could answer, but to fill the space. But since there aren't, I'll just knit as fast as I can. So if you do have questions, either about this class or about the sock class, you can ask me questions on Instagram. You can go to my Instagram, it's Mr. Woolly Bear. Send me a direct message and I can usually get back to it. So if you missed the sock class and you might have a question as you go, or if you have any questions about this class. All right, well, it looks like I knitted where I should have purled on the other side, but I'm just gonna leave it because we're just practicing here. Okay, so now you can see that because I did my cable twist here and it looked like a hot mess at first, but now that I've knitted a couple of rows, it's actually starting to come into shape. So when you do yours and you do the first turn and it looks like a mess, don't panic because that's pretty normal. Now this next time we do it is when it's gonna really start to look like a cable twist. So always go back to refer to your pattern to make sure you know what you're doing. So I'm gonna purl 2 and then 3/3 RC. So do my purl 2. Excuse me. Position your yarn. And then I kind of like this one, so I'm going to use this hook again. So 3/3. So I'm going to take 3 off. And if it's RC, It's going to lean to the right. So we're going to put that in the back. I'll be right back. So if you put it in the back, it's going to lean to the right. Get your yarn in the right position. And then knit 3 stitches for the other half of the cable. And then being careful not to twist it. I'm going to knit the stitches off of my cable needle, double checking that I'm looking at knit stitches and I didn't turn it to the back by mistake. And now I'm going to knit 3 stitches from my cable needle to finish my cable twist. Okay, let's just kind of look at it. So you can see that already looks a lot better. It actually now looks like something. You can see how it's turning and twisting. And then the more you do, then the more it really starts to take shape. After the third one, it would really, really start to take shape. Any questions about that? So now I have
a few questions. Let me scroll back in chat here. We had a couple people wondering if you made your sweater.
No, I bought this sweater before I learned to knit, and this is one thing that helped inspire me to learn to knit. So,
and then Sherry wanted to know, can you do left and right leaning on the same cable, or are they kept separate?
Yes, actually, if you mean as you progress up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can, but it changes the shape of it, and usually no. But because like it's twisting this way, and if you turn twisting it the other way, it's going to kind of like lose the pattern. But when you're doing cables, it isn't always a spiral twist like this. Sometimes when you do cables, you might be doing cables to make the branches of a tree. And then they could turn in either direction. It could change every other time. It could change, often. So there could be a time when it does. And it might be fun in practice to try it and see what it looks like. So.
And one more, Liz wanted to know, are cable abbreviations on different patterns standard?
Oh, they are fairly standard. What do you think, Claire? You might have more experience with the pattern part.
To a certain degree, I would say that probably the way they're written is more standardized than how they're symbolized on a chart.
Yeah. Okay. So for this one, I'm back to my second cable, which is 3/3 LC. So that's 3/3 left leaning cable. So I'm going to slip 3 stitches on my cable needle. And because it's going to turn to the left, I want to hold it to the front. You left the front door open. So remember that, hold it to the front if you want it to go to the left. And then knit 3. And then this one's really easy to tell. Double check it. It's easy to turn it this way. When I was learning, I did this sometimes. And then what happens is you're turning it the wrong way and you're looking at purl stitches. So that's an opportunity to make a mistake. So just double check, just take a second and look and make sure you're looking at knit stitches. And then go ahead and do your last 3 of that cable. And then I'm going to purl 2 to finish it. All right. So remember when you're doing cables, to refer back to your pattern to make sure you're leaning the right direction. You want to always, just double check that you're not holding it in the back or the front in the wrong time. And remember, you don't it seems hard maybe at first, but you're only doing anything new, anything different, like every 4 rows or every 6 rows. You don't have to do something every row. And then when you are doing it, it's actually pretty simple. It's not quite so hard, but like you do your twist and then you have 3 or 4 rows, depending on your pattern, maybe up to 6 or 10 rows of just normal knitting. and then you repeat your cable twist, and then you have a break after that for several rows. So it's not really quite so overwhelming. It does sometimes feel overwhelming, but practicing it will help you realize you can really be successful with this. Any questions about what we've covered?
Yes, question before you put that swatch away. Let me find it again. Christy wondered, her cables sometimes have holes where you change direction. And is that wrong?
Well, it's not wrong, but it's not always your favorite, and it's normal. Like depending on, I think it can depend on the thickness of your yarn and your tension. So I've got a hole right here. So you're going to get a hole where you do your cross. Um, if you're knitting at a very loose tension, I think that hole will be bigger. You don't want to knit too tightly because then it's not going to be a nice fabric. What do you pull it a little bit tighter right there, Claire, or how do you overcome that?
Oops, unmute myself. Well, I was going to say there's always a little bit of hole right where the cross is because you're
Yeah.
sort of switching where the fabric goes. And then sometimes the stitches on either side can be a little bit loose, kind of like that. One way you can do it is to work that stitch through the back loop, which will twist it and make it a little bit tighter.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah, but you have to remember to do that on every row so it's consistent. So I usually just cross my fingers and hope blocking fixes it.
I don't usually notice them so much. Yeah, I don't, stuff like that doesn't bother me so much, but if it bothers you, then yeah, there's ways around it. So um, I would probably pull those stitches just a little tighter and then like Claire said, knit through the back loop. Just make sure your knitting gauge overall isn't too loose. Okay, anything else?
Debbie wanted to know on all the non-cable rows, are we knitting the knit stitches and purling the purl stitches always?
Well, in knitting, there's never an always, but probably 90% of the time, yes. Like in this kind of a cable pattern, the simple one, you will always, once you set up your established stitch pattern, you will remain doing that for this type of a cable. But on other types of cables, anything could happen. So you just have to follow. That's why I always say refer back to your pattern and make sure you see where you're doing. But for this nice simple pattern, you just, once you set up your setup row with your knits and your purls, then that's pretty much what you maintain. And then this is the same pattern, only I'm doing it in the form of a hat in the round. And so you can see this one though, mine are turning all the same direction. So I'm not alternating them. So I changed it up a little bit, but you can see how pretty. It's just a very basic, simple cable. It's the easiest one and it looks very pretty. I think it looks really impressive on something like this, but the secret is it's really easy. Like this takes almost no extra work. So, but you can just see how pretty it is and how nice something like that looks. Even if you only do the very most basic one, it's still a really exciting thing to be able to do. Anything else?
Two more things. Now that you've showed that hat, everyone wants the pattern.
Well, there is no pattern. I just made it up. Sorry about that. But I wanted to have a pattern to show how the simple cable can really look fun, really look nice. But what you can do is you just take your whatever hat pattern you want. If you have a hat pattern that you like, you take that hat pattern and you just apply a cable to it. That's all you have to do. You can be empowered to create your own. Just find a nice stockinette stitch hat pattern and then just do the math so that your stitch count works. And you can do a 2/2 cable, a 3/3 cable, a 4/4 cable, have 2 purl stitches in between, whatever is going to make your stitch count line up. And now you are a knitwear designer. See how easy that was?
And last thing, can you flip that swatch over so we can see the other side?
The other side never looks good. Not in this. There is an slightly more advanced method of cables where they are reversible, but we're not covering that today. But yeah, usually the backside of cables are not quite as nice.
Okay, I think we are all set to try a new cable pattern.
Try the new pattern. Okay, so before we start a new pattern, I want to show you a new way of how cables are presented for you. So they're not always written out. Sometimes they are presented to you in a chart format. So I'll turn it here so you don't have to look at all my scribbles. So this is a chart. This is a cable chart. And when you're following a chart, you always start here. When you're reading a book, of course, you start up here. But whenever you're doing a knitting chart, you always start here. Usually it's going to be numbered. So it helps you remember that this is line number 1. And you go this direction. Okay, you're going to go this direction, and then up, and then back, and then up, and then back. Now, this is actually, it can be a little confusing the first time you do a chart, the first couple of times. What the chart is like a photograph, or it's a representation of the front of your work. So this is what the front of your work looks like. And it's not taking account of what the back of your work looks like. So what the designers believe is that you understand what how the back of your work is created. So on this one, you have to look at what these symbols mean. Purl on the right side, and then if it's just like a symbol like that with just a shading, it's knit on the right side. And if you're knitting on the right side, what is happening on the wrong side of your work? You're creating purls, correct? So just remember, whenever you're knitting, you're not just knitting on one side, you're creating both sides of the work at the same time. So we work this through, we do purls, purls, you do your twist, and then you do purls, purls, then you go up, row number 2. Now we're on the wrong side. We've turned our work, we're on the wrong side. So now this means knit, knit, and then we're going to purl all of these, and then knit, knit. Go up to row 3. Now we're on the right side. Now you don't have to really worry about keeping track of this type of thing, because when you look at your work, you're going to be able to tell if you're on the right side or the wrong side. So it kind of seems like maybe you'll have to panic, but because you're looking at your work, you can look at it and see which side the knits are on and which side the purls are on. And once you get like 2 or 3 rows in, then you'll be able to see how it's established, and then it will remain the same. So any questions about how to read a chart? And then I'm going to talk about these symbols next. Okay, so this symbol here is covering this whole area. So what you want to look at are these like little dashes and which way they're leaning. So they're leaning that direction. So that is this symbol here. And that is a 4-stitch right cross. So if it's a right cross, we hold our cable needle in the back, correct? And this one, you look here and double check and see which way they're leaning. And that's a 4-stitch left cross. So if you're going to do a left cross, you hold your cable needle in the front. And if you need a little help remembering, I did this here as a memory crutch. This one I hold in the back, so I put a B, and this one I hold in the front. And then here's an answer to the question I had earlier. This one you hold in the front, and this one you hold in the back. So that's going to change the direction of the way the cable is. So that is a perfect example of how you can change the direction of the cable within the same cable column. Okay, any questions about that? Nope. So let's switch back to this one. And so here's how this chart looks, and it creates a cable that looks like that. And I just so happen to have a cable that looks pretty much like that. Okay, so I've been working on this one. And that's telling me, so we're looking at these charts. I see these asterisks, and that means purl on the right side, knit on the wrong side. And when you have an empty space, that's the opposite, knit on the right side and purl on the wrong side. So I'm going to do my 2 purls, positioned the right way. Actually, there's 3 purls on this one. So 3 purls. And I'm going to double check my pattern to make sure I'm doing it correct. So I'm going to look at this symbol right here. And they're leaning that direction. So that is a 3/3 right cross. And if you look how many slashes are on that symbol, that'll tell you how many stitches you're going to be crossing. So what I'm going to do is pop 3 of these on my cable needle. And if it's going to be a right cross, I'm going to hold it. I'll be right back. So hold it in the back. And then knit 3. Now I'm going to knit from my cable needle. Now this time we're jumping from one cable right into the next. We're not having any purl stitches in between. And that's going to create a different design for us. And we'll look at that in just a second. Okay. That cable's done. And so we look here and there's no spaces in between these. So that means we're going to jump right into the next one. And that one is 3/3 LC. And so if you look here, there are 3 slashes and 3 slashes. So that means you're going to be crossing 3 stitches over 3 stitches, and they're leaning to the left. So even if you don't have the key to tell you what it means, you can figure it out just by looking at the symbol, which makes perfect sense once you know. So I'm going to put 3 stitches on, 2, 3 on my cable needle, and it's going to be a left leaning, so I'm going to hold it in the front. I'm going to knit 3 stitches to finish the other side of my cable. Okay, and then I'm going to take my cable needle, and so you do kind of get that hole there, but that's just kind of part of cables. I don't think it usually bothers most people. Try to, and then that, and then finish my last 3 purl stitches. And like once you get going, you don't always have to refer back to your chart. You see all those purl stitches, you know it's going to remain purl stitches. All right. So this, it's the same thing we've been doing, only it's changed a little bit. So before, when we were doing the other cable, there was a purl column in between them, which made it look a lot different. And so this way, instead of really twisting them, it almost looks like a horseshoe kind of a shape. So it gives us a different shape, but we're really not doing anything different. It's just the order that the stitches are in and the way that we're changing them. So, and that's a really nice thing about cables. Without learning anything new, really, you can create lots and lots of different looks. So you can do 3 or 4 different types of cables on a scarf or a sweater. People will think that you're like a cable genius. You just took this class and now you can do all these kinds of cables, when actually you're just doing the exact same thing for each cable. You're just doing them in different order and spacing them out differently. So any questions about that type of a cable, or reading a chart, or how are we doing?
Let me scroll back through the chat here a little bit.
Usually there's more questions.
We
I want to make sure.
did have a question on the chart symbol. I would believe it was not for the horseshoe cable, but for the honeycomb cable. Andrea wanted to know, if the left leaning symbol is bottom left up to top right slash.
Well, we're going to go there next, so we'll cover that
Okay.
in just a second. Yeah. Anything about this one?
Oh, what is your little memory trick again?
If you want it to lean to the right, you say in your mind, I'll be right back. So that means the right, you hold it in the back. I'll be right back. And if you want it to lean to the left, then you can say to yourself, I left the front door open. So if you left, you want it to lean to the left, you hold it to the front. I left the front door open.
And can you just demonstrate the left cable one more time, how you position it when you're knitting the stitches off the cable needle?
Okay, so let's go back. So it'll be fun. If you guys make anything and you're on Instagram, you tag me and I'd love to see what you come up with. So now I'm going to uncable this. So don't really watch this part. But if you have to unknit a cable, then you still have to like put the stitches back in the original order. So all right. Get everything in the right position. Okay. So it's a 3/3 left leaning cable. So I put 3 stitches on my cable needle, take it off. It's going to lean to the left, so I'm going to hold it in the front. I left the front door open. And then I'm going to knit my next 3 stitches for that half of the cable. Okay, and sometimes this falls out, so you have to kind of make sure you're watching that. It does create this little hole, but it's not such a bad thing, really. So then I just hold it like this. Basically, you're holding it just like you would normal knitting needles. Because it's in the front, it's really easy to see what you're doing. You're not going to twist it because you can really see it. And then you just knit, so bring the yarn to the right position. Knit those 3 stitches. And then purl the last 3. And so this is one thing I was saying earlier when you're reading the chart and you're supposed to knit on one side and purl on the other side. And it seems confusing when you're looking at it on a chart, but when you're actually doing it in your hand, now that I turn my work over, clearly that's the wrong side. So clearly I'm gonna, and you can see these knit stitches here all lined up. So I'm just gonna continue in pattern. I'm going to knit these. These are all purl stitches. I'll purl all of those. And then, and if you can't tell for sure, sometimes if you look on the front, you can double check to make sure like what's what. But yeah, don't let that intimidate you about the chart. Sometimes that does seem confusing. I've had people ask me, how do you keep track of that? But when you're working actual in real life, holding it in your hand, it's actually quite easy to keep track of where you are. And then once you establish your knits and purls, as long as they're not changing in the pattern, they don't change. You should usually stay the same. Yeah, the cable needle should be smaller than the needles you're knitting with. I mean, maybe the same size would be okay, but definitely never bigger because it will reshape your stitches and change the tension of your area. So the pattern will tell you how often to change the cable to do the twist. So this one, row 1 and row 2, no twist. Row 3, I do a twist right here. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, nothing. And then I restart. I go back to the beginning. row 1, no twist, row 2, no twist, row 3, I do a twist. So for a cable like this, you're really only doing a twist like every 10 rows. So most of what you're doing is nothing new. It's just really what you've been doing all along. So any other questions? I can see the
If
chat
you
today. Usually
wanted
I
to get
can't
in
see the
some
chat.
technical things, I did see earlier, we had a couple questions about how you would fix a mistake if you didn't do a cable or crossed it the wrong way.
Well, my first recommendation is don't do that. But if you can always, whenever, well, I'm going to recommend really that whenever you finish your cable row, like I just finished this cable row, lay it down and look at it because you want to admire your work. You just learned something new and you want to make sure it looks right. So this cables are going this direction. And so this one you can kind of see it's continuing in pattern. Because this is where you want to catch it. If you've made a mistake, if you forgot to hold it in the front or the back, this is the time to catch it. Because you can easily unknit just one row and go back and do it. If you turn the cable the wrong way, so like say down here, like I turned it the wrong way, you can unravel, you can like let these 6 stitches off of your needle, knit over to where that and let those 6 stitches off the needle, unravel all of them down, change the twist, and then come back up, working the twists as you go. That's a little bit more advanced. It's not as hard as it sounds, but it's definitely something you want to do where it's quiet and you have a nice light and no distractions. It's a bit complicated, but it's once you get more comfortable with cables, you can totally do that. But now's the time to fix it. Like double check at the end of this row. My cable twist was in this row, so double check and make sure there are no mistakes at that point.
We did have someone wondering where you got your cable needle. I'm not sure which one she was asking about. I think the one you most recently used.
This one? I bought this one in New Mexico at a yarn store. Whenever I travel, I always go to yarn stores. I don't always buy yarn, but I look for cable needles. And it came with 3 in a pack, and there's one that's a lot bigger than this pink one, but I'm not sure where it is. But yeah, I don't know where I got these from. But if you go on like Amazon and just search for cable needles or hook-shaped J-shape or hook-shaped cable needles, it'll bring up a large selection and you can definitely find a nice variety of different kinds. I like these because it seems to hold it out of the way. Sometimes if you're using, especially if say you have to use a double pointed needle, sometimes that gets in the way and it's not always so easy to work with. This like little one, which is not very big, it has these little grooves in it and that kind of keeps the yarn from slipping off. So that's a nice one as well. Lots and lots of different shapes.
I think your pastel ones might be by Boy. I'm not sure though. And
Nope,
Michael's
Clover.
might carry that brand. Oh, or they're Clover. All right. Well, I think Michael's definitely carries that.
Yeah.
And
no, I didn't even
then,
think to look.
Debbie wanted to know if you could just demonstrate the type of cable you used on your made-up hat pattern. Or they're all going in the
That's the
same
first
direction.
one we did. That's the very first cable we did. That's the very first one we did. And you can see they're all leaning the same direction. So they're leaning to the left, right? So what did I do? I held my cable needle in the front. I just kept it really simple. I didn't want to have to keep track of front and back. I just hold them all in the front and it just gives us this nice twist. And that's the very first one we did. I can go back and do it again if you want me to. But that was this one. So, but it was just this cable here. The very first one we did where I held it in the front. And then I just put 2 purl stitches in between and then just kept repeating it. And you can add cables to any project. You can add cables to a scarf, you can add cables to a hat or a sweater, anything you're making, you can add cables to, now that you know how. I like to try to
Do you,
empower people.
do you remember how often you did the cables on your hat?
So it's a 2/2 twist, and that means I would have done it every 4 rows. So that's a general rule of thumb that I follow. How many stitches you have, that's how many rows you can do your twist to keep it like a nice balanced twist. You can do it sooner and make it very tight. You can do it spread out more and make them very loose, but I do it every 4. So, any other questions about cables?
I would just say, because you mentioned you could add cables to, like, you know, a scarf or a sweater or anything, which you certainly can. But I would say remember that the cables are going to pull in the fabric more. And so if you think, okay, 18 stitches might be enough for a scarf. Normally, if you want that scarf all over cabled, you might want to do something like 28 stitches because they're going to squish in.
Yeah. And if you do a gauge swatch in advance, that will answer all those questions for you.
Yes.
I'm pro gauge swatch.
I make sure and block your swatch.
Yes. Okay. So we have a little bit of time left. What was the question about this pattern? There was a question about this one.
Oh, it was on the symbol. Let's see if I can find it here.
See, this one's really pretty. I love this honeycomb. It's very insulating and very warm. It's almost, if you think of like the waffle of like thermal underwear, I don't know if that's really the fabric, but it creates these little pockets and these little like areas that really help keep the heat in. I really think that's really like a nice, I think it's very pretty. But with this one, if you look here, these lines are leaning to, they're leaning to the left, right? Maybe I wrote that down wrong. And these, oh, wait a minute, something is wrong, right? Am I looking at this wrong, Claire? Is that?
No, I think this is a particularly weird symbol, at least in my cable experience, where the big slash is going in the correct direction.
Oh, I don't like this.
And I don't know what the little tiny slashes are meant to represent there. But this is why you want to make sure that you've got a pattern that has a cable key. It will tell you.
This is why I probably wrote these out, because it was making me very confused now that I look at it, because this is leaning that direction and this is leaning that direction, and it's a right cross. So that was to be held in the back because I'll be right back. But if I'm looking at these, they're leaning to the left. And so that's probably definitely why I wrote that B there, so that I wouldn't look at this and confuse myself. Yeah, that's a bit confusing. So you do want to make sure you are reading your pattern before you start knitting and double checking to make sure you understand everything, because you could make a big mess. In this situation though, if you didn't follow it, if you reversed them, it would still work. You would still get a cable honeycomb, but it would just be in a different order. Yeah, I'm confused by that too. I see somebody says that's what they're confused by. And as a dyslexic person, this is like the meanest thing anyone could do to me, is like try to switch the directions of left and right, because I'm never sure anyway. So I feel like it's a very nasty person did that.
I'm trying to think on subsequent repeats of the cable, those two little small slashes, because you'd be pulling 2 stitches from a cable that previously leaned to the left.
Yeah. So if you look at it, let's just look at part of this. And then, again, this is the exact same thing we've been doing. We're just doing it in a different order. So this is what happens if you change the direction of your cable needle each time. You don't get a twist. What you get is this squiggly line. You get a line that goes this direction. So they're not twisting over. You always just get this kind of squiggly line. And what we're doing is we're putting two squiggly lines right next to each other that are turning in the opposite directions. So as they both come out, they create this honeycomb, and then they come in and they close it off. And then they go opposite directions to go out to create this space, and then they go back in. So if you are doing a cable twist like the first one we did, and you reverse the order of your twists by mistake, this is what happens. It just doesn't twist. You just kind of get a curvy line, and maybe that's fine, and maybe it's not fine. You have to decide yourself what you like in your design. But the thing you want to remember is this looks completely different than this, which looks completely different than this, which looks completely different than this one we haven't even got to yet. This one creates X's and O's for hugs and kisses. This one has the X here, and then the O is supposed to represent hugs and kisses. But we're doing the same thing. We're only taking stitches off, holding them in the front or holding them in the back, knitting stitches and then putting them back on, knitting them in different order. It's all in the way they're arranged and in the order that we're doing it in, and if we're holding them in the front and the back. That's really all we're doing. And once you get comfortable with that, you can tackle pretty much any cable design that you want. So like once you take this beginning class, I mean, that's pretty much it. You're pretty set. You just need practice.
Yep, that practice is key for sure.
It's the practice. And don't, if you get mixed up in your cable, don't panic. You can always unknit a row or two. Oh, one tip I didn't mention earlier is, especially on a cable like this one, where you're turning it pretty often, or any of them really, whenever you do a cable twist, you're going to do your cable twist right here. So at the beginning of that row, one thing you can do to help you keep track is to put a stitch marker. So this was my cable row. And then you can put one if you want at the beginning of every row. So but when you get 9 stitch markers, then you're back to your cable twist. And that can help you keep track because it's not always easy. You kind of go through here and find this where these holes are that we talked about. And you can kind of see that here's where the twist happened. So this would be the next row up. But then I'm always wondering, is it that stitch or is it that one? It gets confusing. And then you count it and then see if it's time to do your next twist. If you do your twist at the wrong time, it does change the way the twist looks, and it might show up in your work. It might be a big deal. It might not look so different. But until you get really good at keeping track, you can put a stitch marker. And then if you have to go do something and come back like the next day, you'll know exactly where you are. You can make tick marks on a piece of paper, or you can, keep track in lots of different ways, but you do want to try to keep track of that. And I like this stitch marker technique. So any other questions?
While we wait for some other questions to come in, just a reminder that if you did join on a phone or a tablet or another mobile device, unfortunately, Zoom did not let you download the handout from the chat, but you can reply to your class confirmation email from Michael's, and they'll send you the handout, so you've got that. I'm going to put it in the chat a couple more times here. And just in case anybody didn't get it, I'll put in both the PDF and the Word file. As a reminder, again, this was recorded, so you can go back and watch it starting tomorrow at michaels.com/classes. It'll also be on their YouTube channel. You can access it there. For those of you who joined thinking this was a SOC class, again, apologies for that mix-up. We did the SOC class on November 2nd, so that'll be on the Michael's YouTube page as well. For upcoming classes, we've got one coming up next Monday on crewel embroidery. That is CREWEL. We're not going to be mean to you. And
not very mean.
Not terribly mean. And then on December 7th, we're going to show you some needle felting basics. You can make a cute holiday decoration if you want. And then on December 14th, we're going to have Introduction to Fair Isle Knitting. And those will all be available. Sign up on michaels.com/classes. Oh, we have one actual cable question coming in. In the first pattern, are you doing right then left on the first row of the cable? And then when you get to a row where you do it again, you then go left to right?
Not on the first one. The first one doesn't have a chart. You're always going 3/3 RC and then 3/3 LC. And then down here, it's giving it to you again, 3/3 RC, and then 3/3 LC. And that's what creates the spiral. If you change that every other time, you would not get the spiral. That's what happens. That's what you do when you get this honeycomb, because it's turning this way, and then it's turning that way, and then it's turning this way. But to continue it turning the same way each time, then you get this kind of a spiral look. And see, if you put them right next to each other like that, that looks different. It almost looks like they're coming out, like instead of a spiral, I kind of see this shape where they're kind of coming out like that. But if you space them out a little bit more, like I did on this, then you definitely see the spiral. So that's just like a way of showing, like just by having different spacing, it can really affect, and doing very little else, you can really affect the way the cables look and how they turn out.
And is it safe to assume that you have an even number of rows between cables?
Double check your pattern as you go, because anything can happen. You know, knitting is a creative, it's a creative endeavor, and so the designer could do anything. So just make sure before you start, double check your pattern, maybe count the rows that are in between. Anything can happen. You know, any designer can do whatever they want. So if you need to contact me on Instagram, maybe Claire will put it in the chat for us. It's Mr. M-I-S-T-E-R Woolly Bear. So Mr. Woolly Bear. And I'm also on TikTok now. So I'm trying to figure out what TikTok is. Yeah, so just send me a direct message, and usually I can get back to them pretty quick. So I'd hate to like leave people like out on a limb if they have questions. I like to encourage people to keep going. So, and if you make anything, tag me in it. I'd love to see what you make. Any other questions? We got 1 minute.
Someone wanted to know, how many types of cables are there?
6,012.
I don't know if there's that many, but there are probably hundreds of combinations and variation. Do cables use more yarn?
They do tend to use a bit more because you're kind of, you know, the way they cross over. Not a lot, depending on, I guess, the cable pattern, it could be quite a bit, right, Claire?
It depends on how dense the gauge is and how tightly the cables are packed. Typically, you're doing cables in stockinette stitch, which uses a little bit less yarn than garter stitch. So,
yeah, but I always say buy extra yarn. That's my life. That's how I live my life. So, buy extra yarn, you won't be sorry.
And just a reminder, the recording for this class will be available starting tomorrow afternoon on michaels.com/classes. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Have a happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate Thanksgiving. Bye.